This is a postcard, the Winchester City Building. This building was built in 1902, 1903, somewhere in that area. The building over here on the east of the fire station, this building, there was a storefront down here, apartment up above. This stairwell went upstairs the building. Over here was the hotel. This wall was a hotel. Fire station, to go in the fire station, you walked in here. There was a door right here that went into the fire station. And there was if you went on, there was a stairway that went upstairs to this landing. You went down a short hall, about in here somewhere, to go south, clear back to the back of the building. That was where the police station was. There was an iron fire escape type stairway back here to back. This was open. Went up to the second floor to the police station. If you went straight down this little short hallway, you would come to a doorway back in there about this area. Now, all of this was the sleeping quarters for the firemen. From this window, about 15 feet, maybe 20 feet, back into the sleeping quarters, there's a big round hole in the floor, and there was a brass pole anchored to the ceiling, anchored to the floor. So if there was a fire call late at night and the firemen were sleeping, they just got in their clothes, their fire gear, jumped on the pole, went down. They didn't have to come down the hallway to the stairway, down the stairway into the fire station. And it was behind this window. You kept going straight. Horses on this side, horses on this side. They were back in a kind of a stable area, but as soon as the fire bell rang, the horses came out. They knew they were leaving. Harnesses dropped down on them. Firemen come up, hooked them up, and they were out and gone. Ladder wagon on one side and a bucket wagon on the other side. Now there's a wall back in there that separates the actual fire department part from the lounge where the firemen spent most of their day. They cooked, they had television, they sat back in there. Back almost clear to the back, another room was the city court, and generally the mayor was the judge. Traffic citations, public intoxication, minor things like that. Now the tower, the bell tower. Up here, when the building was done, they hired a man, and I can't think of his name, to go to Charlie McGee's, and they had bought a bell, shipped up from Cincinnati, went over to Charlie's, picked it up by horse and wagon, brought it back, scaffolded up, hung the bell, and then there was a rope right down in here for ringing the fire bell. They paid him $3.50 to build that. Now, when I was going in there spending time, the firemen were Ben Patterson, Butch Thornburg, Gene Keener, and Bill Vanote. Gene was the chief at that time. Now over here, this little building, this was Max Romiser's blacksmith shop. This building did set right in here on this area. Well, the city wanted to build a new building. So the only ground that was available or that might be bought was Zachary Taylor Romiser's blacksmith shop. But he didn't want to sell. He wanted to keep working. So the city told him they would buy the ground and they would move the blacksmith shop across the alley, and he would keep working, which he did. He did that. Well, later on, this ended up being Troy Keener's sporting goods store. Troy did a lot of work, put up block walls, cement walls, put a gable roof on the building. By that time, Zachary Taylor had died. His son, Max Romiser, was working the blacksmith shop. Well, he and Gene and Troy were good friends. Max's health wasn't the best, so he sold the business to Troy and Gene. Now, on the back of this building, there's a shed roof, pretty good sized room. Troy bought fur, and I worked back in the back, skinning muskrat, possum, coon, whatever he bought in the winter. John Gibbons worked with me. Now, Ben Patterson would come over, and he'd help skin. And Gene and I, so there was 4 of us back there. Now, they had clear at the back, there was a pretty good sized room back here, had a potbelly stove in it. Now, on Saturdays, the old fellows would come to town, the farmers, bring their fur in, sell to Troy. Had a big potbelly stove right in the middle of that. And every Saturday, there's an old fellow from Bartoni would bring a big cooker full of whatever he had. It might be duck, goose, pork, muskrat, coon. We never knew what it was going to be. I'll tell that story later on. He came in a Model T Ford. It was about a 1925. But I would go over most of the time that I didn't like what he was cooking, like possum. Now, I'd go over here and I'd eat with the firemen. That's more stories. But this was where they worked, where the firemen stayed, the bell tower, the horses, later on, trucks. Problem with the trucks were they were heavy. It was a wood floor and had a tendency to wreck that floor. So that's when they had to get out finally and built a new city building. More on that later. The last video I made, I got rednecked. A young lady said, well, the picture, it shakes a little bit and you're holding it. Well, hell yes, it shakes a little bit. I'm 81 years old. I hope she remembers that when she gets to be 81 years old. If she gets that old, she makes it there. Old people shake a little bit. And I also got rednecked because I used a pencil for a pointer to highlight, a couple of places on that I was talking about. They said, well, you used a pencil for a pointer. And it looked like you'd sharpen it with a knife. Now, yes, I sharpened it with a knife. I sharpened it with my pocket knife. I've carried a pocket knife since I was 10 years old. And I always sharpen pencils with my pocket knife. Now, from the time I was 10 years old on up, men carried pocket knives. I guess they don't today. So if you're offended by an old man that shakes a little bit and uses a pencil for a pointer that he sharpened with a pocket knife, you need to go someplace else, watch something else. Okay, now, what I'm talking about today